You think you choose people based on attraction, chemistry, or coincidence, but you don't. You choose people based on familiarity, even when that familiarity hurts you. Your brain doesn't look for what's good for you, it looks for what it recognizes. That's why you keep ending up with the same type of person. Different face, different story, same emotional outcome, and every time it happens, you ask yourself the same question: why does this keep repeating? The answer isn't bad luck, it's conditioning. Long before you were aware of it, your brain learned what connection feels like, what attention feels like, what love feels like. And once something feels familiar, your brain marks it as safe, even if it causes pain. That's the trap. Because safety to the brain does not mean peace, it means predictability. So when you meet someone who feels calm, stable, and healthy, your brain feels bored. But when you meet someone who triggers anxiety, intensity, or uncertainty, your brain feels alive. Not because it's love, but because it's familiar chaos. And until you understand that, you will keep choosing people who activate old wounds instead of new possibilities. Your brain learned what connection feels like long before you ever chose anyone consciously. Through moments where attention appeared and disappeared. Through moments where affection felt conditional. Through moments where love came mixed with tension, silence, or uncertainty. Those early emotional environments didn't stay in the past. They became your reference point when you meet someone new. Your brain doesn't ask, is this person healthy? And familiarity feels safe to the nervous system. This is why you can logically know someone isn't good for you and still feel pulled toward them. Because attraction is not a conscious decision. It's a nervous system recognition. Predictability now feels empty. If connection once required effort, ease feels suspicious. If attention came with anxiety, calm feels boring. It craves what it knows how to survive. That's why you can feel deeply attracted to people who recreate emotional chaos, while feeling emotionally numb around people who offer stability. But because your nervous system doesn't know how to interpret it yet, this is where many people get trapped. It just doesn't feel right. But what they're really saying is, my nervous system isn't activated. And activation feels exciting, even when it's rooted in fear. Because those feelings resemble the emotional environment you learned to call connection. Your brain is not searching for happiness. It is searching for consistency with the past. That's why the same story repeats. And when it ends, you tell yourself, I don't understand why this keeps happening. It keeps choosing what confirms its emotional blueprint. Breaking this pattern doesn't start with choosing better people. It starts with recognizing what your nervous system has been trained to respond to. Because until familiarity stops controlling attraction, you will keep confusing emotional activation with connection. The healthier the person, the quieter the feeling, which makes walking away from chaos feel like loss, and walking toward peace feel like settling. And once you see that clearly, the entire pattern starts to lose its power. What most people call chemistry is not attraction. It's activation. It's your nervous system reacting before your mind has time to think. That sudden pull, that feeling of intensity that appears instantly. Your brain interprets this activation as importance, but importance does not mean compatibility. And intensity does not mean connection. When someone is unpredictable, emotionally unavailable, inconsistent, or distant, your nervous system goes on alert. Stress hormones increase. So you confuse anxiety with excitement. Your body feels something strong, and your mind labels it as attraction. But what's really happening is survival energy. Your nervous system is reacting to uncertainty the same way it learned to react years ago. It's scanning. Healthy people don't trigger this response. They don't create emotional spikes. Calm feels unfamiliar when chaos was normal. So your brain says, there's no spark, there's no chemistry. It feels flat. But what it really means is, there's no threat to manage. And your nervous system doesn't know what to do without a threat. This is why you can feel bored around safe people and obsessed with unstable ones. Your body mistakes regulation for emptiness. And this is dangerous, because it trains you to chase relationships that keep your nervous system dysregulated. Over time, intensity becomes addictive, because they make you feel alive. But aliveness is not the same as connection, without emotional spikes. And when your nervous system isn't used to that, it interprets slowness as lack. That's why many people leave healthy relationships early. Not because something is wrong, but because nothing feels overwhelming. Your brain has learned that love should hurt a little, that closeness should be uncertain. Until you retrain your nervous system, chemistry will keep lying to you. It will keep pulling you toward people who feel intense, familiar, and emotionally risky, and it will keep pushing you away from people who feel stable, consistent, and safe. The shift happens when you stop asking, "Do I feel chemistry? Do I feel regulated?" Because real connection doesn't hijack your nervous system. And the moment calm stops feeling boring, your patterns begin to change. You don't just choose people, you don't even realize you're doing it. When you enter a relationship, your brain is not only looking at the person in front of you, it's looking for a familiar emotional position, a role it already knows how to play. The one who waits, the one who fixes, the one who proves their worth, the one who hopes things will change. These roles were not chosen randomly. They were learned. Playing that role gave you a sense of value. Maybe attention only came when you were useful. Maybe love appeared when you were patient. Maybe approval came when you stayed quiet, supportive, understanding. So your brain connected the role to safety. And now, as an adult, you are drawn to people who allow you to play that same role again, not because it fulfills you, but because it confirms who you believe you are. If you are used to being the one who chases, being chased feels strange. If you are used to earning affection, receiving it freely feels undeserved. If you are used to emotional distance, closeness feels invasive. So you unconsciously choose people who fit the script, because they activate the role your nervous system recognizes. This is why some relationships feel right, even when they hurt. They allow you to stay in a familiar emotional posture, and leaving that posture feels like losing identity. If you stop fixing, who are you? If you stop waiting, who are you? If you stop proving, what makes you valuable? These questions are uncomfortable, so your brain avoids them. Instead, it keeps you in the same dynamics, with different people. That's why the story repeats. You don't just lose the person. That loss can feel disorienting quickly, so not to find love, but to restore identity. This is where many people say, "I don't know who I am without this person." What they really mean is, "I don't know who I am without this role." Healing begins when you recognize the role you keep stepping into. Because once you see the pattern, you can pause. You can ask yourself, what role am I about to play here? What am I trying to earn? What am I afraid of losing? Space to not fall into the same position automatically. Breaking the pattern doesn't mean finding the perfect person. It means refusing to abandon yourself by replaying an old role. And once you stop choosing people who need you to shrink, wait, or prove, you open the door to relationships where you don't have to perform to belong. You don't ignore red flags because you don't see them. You ignore them because your nervous system doesn't register them as danger when they feel familiar. When emotional distance, inconsistency, silence, or unpredictability were part of your early experiences, those signals don't activate alarms in adulthood. They activate recognition. Your brain interprets what it recognizes as safe, even when it hurts, because safety to the nervous system means predictability, not peace. That's why logic often loses against attraction, because logic is learned later, while conditioning is learned early. When a red flag appears, your mind doesn't immediately say this is unhealthy. Instead, it starts creating explanations that reduce emotional tension. You tell yourself the person is busy, misunderstood, wounded, afraid, or just needs time. And those explanations feel comforting because they allow you to stay without making a difficult decision. Leaving would require you to face loss, uncertainty, and the collapse of hope. And your brain will always try to avoid immediate emotional pain, even if that avoidance creates long-term damage. Red flags also activate an old belief that many people carry without realizing it. The belief that love must be earned through patience, endurance, or understanding. When that belief is active, a red flag doesn't look like a warning. It looks like a challenge. Something to tolerate, something to fix, something to overcome. And the more you endure, the more invested you become. Because walking away would feel like failing the test, like admitting that all the effort was for nothing. This is why you can stay in situations that slowly drain you while telling yourself you are being strong. Your brain rewards endurance with meaning. It tells you that suffering now will be justified later, that loyalty will be recognized, that patience will turn into closeness. And because that story reduces anxiety in the moment, it feels true, even when evidence says otherwise. Over time, ignoring red flags reshapes your self-image. You start doubting your instincts. You stop trusting your discomfort. You convince yourself that you are too sensitive or asking for too much. This is how boundaries disappear quietly, not in dramatic moments, but in small internal negotiations that happen every day. The shift only happens when you stop asking whether you can handle what's happening and start asking why this feels normal to you. Because when a red flag feels familiar instead of alarming, it is usually not intuition guiding you. It is conditioning repeating itself. And the moment you see that clearly, the red flag loses its emotional power. Not because you become colder or less caring, but because you finally choose clarity over familiarity and self-respect over emotional repetition. You don't choose the same people over and over because you are unlucky, broken, or incapable of learning. You choose them because your nervous system has been trained to confuse familiarity with safety and intensity with connection. For a long time, your brain believed that love meant tension, that closeness meant effort, and that being chosen required endurance. So it kept pulling you toward what felt known, even when it slowly erased parts of yourself. But the moment you become aware of this pattern, something changes, not outside of you, but inside. Attraction starts to lose its automatic power. Familiar chaos no longer feels romantic, it feels recognizable, and recognition creates distance. Real change does not happen when you finally meet the right person. It happens when you stop abandoning yourself to keep familiar patterns alive. It happens when calm stops feeling boring and starts feeling safe, when consistency stops feeling suspicious and starts feeling trustworthy, when you no longer need emotional highs to feel connected. This shift is uncomfortable at first, because your nervous system is learning a new language, a language without urgency, without fear, without emotional spikes, and your brain will resist it, because it always resists what it has never practiced. But if you stay, if you allow yourself to sit inside that unfamiliar calm without running back to intensity, your attraction begins to change, not because you forced it, but because your nervous system finally understands that love does not have to hurt to be real. And that is the real ending of the story. You stop choosing people who reopen old wounds, and you start choosing relationships where you don't have to prove, fix, wait, or endure to belong. Not because you lowered your standards, but because you finally raised your self-respect. And once that happens, the pattern breaks quietly. No drama, no big announcement. Just a simple truth settling in your mind. You no longer chase what feels familiar. You choose what feels safe. And from that moment on, the people you choose stop hurting you, because you are no longer choosing from the past, but from awareness.